All right. So orange versus
Part where it's supposed to
Dethellor.
transition, man. Okay. They were like saying we're gonna jump into it, but I guess we're actually having server problems with them too. Just because I think what happens is there's like a patch updating to try to fix the problems because Europe has been rather unstable for the past 24 hours or so.
That's the Murloc.
Europe has been unstable for the last 24 months. I think, is the play.
Oh, only that short, huh?
We even
Yeah.
lost UK, man. That's so weird.
Please, no
Is
Brexit,
it? Is
no
it?
Brexit jokes. This is a Brexit joke-free cast.
you
Okay.
just walked straight into it.
I did, just like we walked straight out of Europe.
That's
great,
a good
yeah.
one.
That was good.
So I have actually a question to Tars because Tars is still with us. Tars, how are you enjoying the atmosphere? Like, how many people actually came from France over? Like, I know like you live in Spain, but
A lot. Like we are the second most represented country behind Spain. I think maybe 20, 40, I don't know.
Wow.
That's a lot. Yeah.
that's a lot of people. So like all the teams from France, like Melty and
Melty,
Millennium.
Millennium, Gamers Origin, but also Genius and like other teams as well. That are, we often see them in French tournaments, but now they are here as well in Spain.
So do you feel ready? Like we will have 6 more rounds of Swiss today.
Yes.
Just going to take all of them.
Yep.
I don't know. Now that my shaman is revealed, maybe it won't work that good. I don't know.
It's really hard. Like even if people expect you to play this shaman, it's really hard to really adjust your play style.
Okay.
There's a game. Sorry, I just
there
want to
is
interrupt you
Hearthstone
because
Good.
Thank you so much.
Good
I'd
casting.
I'd love to
Tars.
hear more from Tars, of course, but we want to feed these people also the main course of what's going on. Big shout out to our lovely admin Amanda for taking care of stuff. All right, Kai series tie 1-1. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Rodan. All right, so we have the bounce in Shaman and Warrior.
Yep, Shaman and Warrior have gone down. It looks like we are getting a Yogg Druid mirror right now. You can see that glorious new Innovate animation glistening in the hand of Orange.
Oh, wow.
Dethellor definitely has a much slower hand. Orange has pretty much exactly what you want here. Has the ramp with Wild Growth and Innovate, and has the mana to spend afterwards. Like, has the high resource cards to spend his mana afterwards. So
Yeah, like basically having Violet Teacher, Innervate, and Coin, and Power of the Wild is the dream. It's the only question is when do you pull the trigger? But the best part is Druid normally doesn't have an answer to that kind of board.
Nope. Spell Power Swipe is about the best thing they can do, and if you do it this early in the game, that requires some crazy innovates coming out from your opponent as well. So the earlier that you do it and still make an oppressive enough board, generally the better. So I'm almost certain that we will see Orange generating some sort of Violet Teacher board here. Just a matter of whether he uses the coin as well, like basically playing a 0-mana 2-2 with the coin. But now he has the option to keep the coin possibly for the second Violet Teacher, and also because it can accelerate that Ancient of War that he has in his hand.
Yeah, this is just an amazing turn for Orange. And Dethellor normally didn't have a play. Like he has a swipe, so in theory he will be able to deal with the Teacher, but he's not really dealing with the 2/2s, which will be 2/1s, and they will be buffed. Or not really. Actually, you'll have 5/6. Yeah, they will be buffed.
Yep, so it does have the swipe to clear up the Teacher, but he can get rid of only that. He will leave the 2/1s on the board, which means that the second Teacher plus Power of the Wild is going to follow up immediately to just rebuff the entire board, since he did hold on to that coin, which has to be the correct decision, right?
Definitely. But let's talk about the players as well. Like a lot of people know Orange, but Dethellor, one of the better Greek players that actually, I think he was second in one of the biggest Swiss tournaments in France, like Gamers Origin 2. He lost to Maverick, a really great player that was playing many DreamHacks before.
Yeah, fantastic player, but I mean,
Like
this board.
Yeah, I
This
know,
board
right?
is. I'd love to talk about player histories, but when Violet Teacher things happen, like Yogg Druid, when it comes together, is just one of the most satisfying decks to play, one of the most satisfying decks to watch. Like, I love combo decks in Hearthstone just because when they work, you just feel so powerful. Like, it's a
feels
great
right.
feeling. Yeah, like, you know, Warsong Patron was one of my favorite decks of all time, and I'm so still sad that that deck is gone forever. But, you know, when you can just do crazy things like this with your deck, you know, when you can put a deck together that actually does this fairly consistently. Like, the deck works. You get to do this often.
Well, the thing
it's
is,
a great feeling.
the check, from my perspective, the check for the combo deck is that if you don't get the combo and you still are able to win, then it means the deck is good.
Yes.
Because like if you lose if you don't get the combo, it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And this deck actually has so many ways. Like obviously Violet Teacher and Fundrel with all those spells is the big combo you can get. But other than that, you still like combine even like Living Roots with Power of the Wild. It still works. With Raven Idol, you can adjust your strategy, and then obviously you have Yogg-Saron as well as like kind of like finisher or like a step. And if you run out of cards, just play Yogg-Saron and refill your hand.
Yeah, this is pretty much the perfect deck for Yogg-Saron because you spend the whole of the mid game basically just trying to do something gross and powerful, right? And if you get all the way to turn 10 and that hasn't happened and you've drawn Yogg, then your opponent's probably got a little bit of an advantage on you by that point. So you can say, okay, Yogg, we'll reset the game, we'll try again. It might draw me some cards, play some secrets, etc. But yeah, this game just got crushed out, like you said, by that token generation from Violet Teacher. Just one of the many ways this deck can win the game, and Orange is going to go out to a 2-1 lead here, just needing to defeat Dethellor's Warlock.
One of the most powerful plays I really like in this deck is just scenarios when you have Fundrel on board. Like you have Fundrel and you play scenarios, and for 1 second you're like, oh my god, something bugged. I cannot choose. And then you realize, okay.
Yeah, that's just how Fandral works. You get, what is it, 4/4, you get 2 4/4s, a +2/+2 buff to Fandral, and the 5/8 out of it. Like, it's nuts when that happens.
It's super good, super good.
But Dethellor does have the Zoo deck here, which is one of the nice answers to Yogg Druid. It can generally just be annoying. Wow,
Soggoth the Slitherer. Interesting.
That's incredible. So people have been messing around with builds of this deck, like changing what the 9-drop is, whether you play 1 or 2 of them. Basically like Cenarius or Onyxia, or maybe both. Orange seems to have his own idea, just get that big untargetable taunt in the way. Which, why would you put Soggoth into a deck for a tournament meta? Like, what decks are you aiming that at?
Well, I guess if you don't ban Zoo, you ban Shaman. Soggoth is another taunt that you can play, but then like it doesn't really improve the Zoo matchup because versus Zoo you have to have a really good start.
Yeah, and I think Soggoth specifically, like, its benefit is not being targetable by spells, right? Like, Zoo isn't going to blast it with spells. It's going to, like, power overwhelming a small dude and just bash through it, so...
But that's just another taunt. Like, if you go Druid of the Claw into, like, Ancient of War, and then you have Soggoth on top of that, maybe that will stop. But then they normally have scenarios as well.
Right.
So maybe not actually targeting Zoo there. Maybe
I think like one of the first things you point out is like possibly Rogue because it's just a nightmare for them to deal with. But are you expecting Rogue in this meta? I'm not expecting Rogue in this meta.
So I think like he's expecting Warrior, Dragon, just countering Dragon Warrior with that because you cannot execute the Soggoth. You have to.
That's true.
Deal with it.
That's a fair point.
But here, just this is Zoo, and already Dethellor has a good answer for this free 2. On the other hand, like Orange, he is having the free 2s at least, so something to fight back early game. But then you need more, like you really need Thundrel, you need like a good swipe to win versus Zoo.
Yeah.
You need so many things, like sometimes I'm even thinking about mulliganing away Wildgrove because it doesn't matter if I have more mana if I don't have the specific spells to be able to deal with the Zoo.
I think that used to be the case with classic mid-range Druid, Combo Druid, which, by the way, calling old Druid Combo Druid is weird because this is Combo Druid that we're watching right now. But yeah, old double combo mid-range Druid, that I kind of agreed with mulliganing away Wild Growth a lot of the time, but I think this deck just has so many ways to spend mana really well when it ramps up that it's kind of okay, if you go Wild Growth Teacher or Wild Growth Fandral, even if your Fandral just dies immediately the next turn, they've still had to slam a bunch of resources into it.
I would still prefer to have Innervate instead of
100%,
Wild Growth. Yeah, that's why you can think about mulliganing Wild Growth. I'm still not certain if it's good to do it in this matchup. Every other matchup, you obviously keep it. But like in this matchup, you have to do things really fast.
Innovate, Nourish for draw here. Oh, no, he did ramp. It looked like he clicked draw to me. I was going to say, I kind of like the ramp here since you're staring at Soggoth the Slitherer. And you get the 2 extra mana back to hero power the 1/1. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I sometimes even mulch the 2/4.
It's a good mulch target.
Yeah, it's a good mulch target. You do not create a 1/1 minion, and it's kind of like a tempo play in a way because then you will be able to play your 4 drops. But yeah, this matchup is really bad for Druid. We'll see like how Orange handles it. The Raven Idol will be very important, like what you get from it. And here for Dethellor, seems like an easy play. It's obviously Councilman, and then one of the 1/1s. Which one do you prefer?
I like the Voidwalker, just protecting the Councilman, because this is a 6-mana turn, which means swipe hero power.
Or like
so if you played
Feral
Squire,
Rage?
yeah, Feral Rage as well, but yeah, specifically like swipe hero power is what occurred to me. You know, swipe the Imp Gang boss, hero power the Councilman, not in that order because you'd take 1 extra damage, but still that 1/3 in the way means that you're protected from that hero power happening. And that innovate means that we have a Soggoth next turn if we want it.
And there's Starfall, by the way,
Yeah.
to deal with this 1/5. And Starfall is a great card versus Zoo overall, and a great answer to the Forbidden Ritual as well. But you definitely need to deal with the Councilman, because Councilman can get out of hand really fast.
Yeah, I mean, I love picking up Starfall off Raven Idol in this matchup. Like you said, primarily just for AoE. Like 2 damage to a Zoo board is nuts. So yeah, even for 5 mana, which is just an overcosted.
Well, not to
Consecrate.
that board specifically.
Right,
but
yeah, that's what I'm
overall.
saying. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. You need to have this big taunt stick. You're pretty much all in on this big taunt. So if you just leave the Councilman there and just let your opponent buff it up to like 7-8 power by the time that your 5/9 comes down, then, you know, really, like how much work
Easy
is it
trade.
actually going to do? Yeah.
So here, good news for Orange, bad news for Dethellor. There is no PO, so this means that Soggoth might be troublesome, but we still have a couple of draws for Dethellor to be able to counter it, and he is on board already.
Yeah, he's on board, and he takes the Elven Archer over the Possessed Villager, which means he could have been on board with a Death Rattle, but the Divine Shield is much the same thing. So he's on board. He doesn't really have the buffs to push through too explosively, but he does have those 2 minions in play that will at least respawn. So he will be able to get through and retain some sort of board presence.
And this is troublesome, because you play Soggoth, but Soggoth can probably be killed. It's like 9 health. We have what, like 4, 5, 6 plus 2, 8, 9 to kill it easily. Well, not really easily, because you lose most of your board, but still, you deal with it, and Druid only has 2 cards. The next turn is not Scenario's turn. Turn 8 is quite awkward, and then even for Yoxaron, there weren't that many spells cast.
So I think he's casting Doomguard on this turn, almost certainly. It looks like his only real way to like maintain real initiative on the board while trading through this.
So you play Elven Archer to do 1 damage.
So your 1 damage with the Elven Archer preserves a Divine Shield, right? So it'd be 1 damage to 8. The Doomguard would put it down to 3. Okay, no. So yeah, the Elven Archer is better. I was gonna say I thought you could just use the Divine Shield and the 2/2 alongside the Doomguard. In which case, I think it's stronger just to play a new Voidwalker. But since it's actually 1 more damage than that, then yes, the Elven Archer is better.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, Zoo dealt with it even without Power Overwhelming, and now Sylvanas. Well, there is this Voidwalker in a way.
But he has Feral Rage that can take that out next turn if he wants to.
Yeah, but then there is so much damage coming your way.
It's
So
not that much. It's 10. You're at 21. You have an 11 damage buffer. That's like fine against Zoo to an extent. They're not just going to draw 11 damage off the top most of the time.
yeah, especially in the Doomguard version.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, you cannot really deal with this board. I mean, Sylvanas is not bad, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deal with this board whatever you do. That's the problem, right? So Sylvanas just kind of has to be the play. I think the decision is like Power of the Wild for the 3/2 or gain the 1 life. Like, does the 1 life really play around anything? I don't think so.
Not really.
So yeah, the extra 3/2 on board just seems fine. There's not a great trade on the board for a 3/2. There's the Imp Gang boss, which starts spawning more 1/1s, which, since you've just played Sylvanas, you don't really want it to do. So that might be the consideration for Orange here of just not playing it.
I think you keep 3/2 for now, but Alchemist. Alchemist is interesting. You can actually swap your Doomguard after the attack. Like, attack first, then swap the Doomguard to have minions that will not kill Sylvanas.
Right.
It's a cute play there. So like, mostly if you cannot deal with Sylvanas, mostly what you do, you deal with Sylvanas on board and give like a small minion. But at this point, I think there is no reason to kill Sylvanas. Just going for face makes a lot of sense.
It is a lot of damage to face, but from Dethellor's perspective, he'll be considering, you know, the various options. Okay, what happens if he can remove that 1/3? He gets to trade into my 5/2. Well, then what are his odds of stealing something big?
Yeah.
And then if he steals something big, how favored am I in the matchup at that point? And then you have to weigh that against the same decision, but with killing Sylvanas on your turn this turn. So it's a pretty complicated equation to weigh up. Dethellor decides that letting Orange run the risk of being able to kill his own Sylvanas here is superior, and I would personally be inclined to agree with him.
Well, also there is one more thing you have to remember. There is Engine of War, so
Yes.
Alchemist is a really good answer to Engine of War, just limiting the health to 5 instead of 10. Mulch. So, the play you suggested. Feral Rage, we go into 1-3, we attack into the Doomguard, we steal something, we are 12, we are still in trouble.
I kind of like mulching the 1-3 now, as ridiculous as that might sound. Like, mulch the 1-3, then you also get to hero power down a 1-1 to take that out of the pool of things that Sylvanas can steal. And then you still potentially have Feral Rage to rebound in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely
with the armor game.
You can also mulch the 5-2 now.
Sure.
Kill the 1-1 still. Feral Rage is definitely needed to have the 8 health at some point. Oh, wow. Okay, that's a nice silence.
Excellent.
Keeper of the Grove is quite okay. It's also 2 damage if you want to. All right,
So he's
gain life.
going to Feral Rage for the armor right now.
You have to, because
go up to 20.
You have those big cards in your deck. You have Scenarios, you have Engine of War, you have Yoxaron.
Sure.
So you want to get to those cards, you need to buy the time.
Yeah, so I like this. Orange thinks he has enough time here, so essentially by like making the play with the mulch and killing your Sylvanas the turn before, you kind of solve the Sylvanas problem for your opponent, right? Now, at this point, he still has the Sylvanas problem to address. So I think actually what Orange ended up doing here is actually stronger, being that you can just immediately cast the Feral Rage and get out of range.
Yeah.
Then yeah, this looks a lot stronger.
So that was a good line. And then for Dethellor now, he's still trying to deal damage. He knows this is a good matchup. Orange only having 1 card in hand. The card that can really punish Dethellor is Yoxaron. At this point, I think we've got to around like 7 to 10 spells. I'm not sure how many have we seen.
So Raven Idol was played for a Nourish. He's played both Innovates. He's played a Wild Growth. So yeah, it's somewhere in the region of 6 to 8, I'd say.
I would definitely silence Sylvanas, and I think go face with the rest.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that line of play. Wow, he's going to use Corruption, Forbidden Ritual. Interesting.
Just building a bigger board and using Keeper to silence its taunts.
So yeah, but you've already made the point. He already has Crazed Alchemist in hand, so he has one potential answer. Not a perfect answer to Ancient of War that you see being drawn immediately.
Yeah.
But he does have an answer, so I can kind of just just silencing the Sylvanas.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like Corruption actually, because now Sylvanas can kill one of the minions, like kill the Imp Gang boss. You don't get anything. And then if there is like a swipe being drawn, like you almost lose the board. Like let's say there is a swipe. If he will have like swipe earlier, you can clear the board and steal the Imp Gang boss.
I think Dethellor knows that 1 card remaining in Orange's hand wasn't swipe. It's just the question of like, did he expose himself to losing the game to top deck swipe unnecessarily? Yeah. Like, did the play he make really change what swipe would do to his board? Yeah, I think so, right? Because he wouldn't have committed the Forbidden Ritual. He would have had an extra 2/2 on the board that wouldn't have died to swipe.
And Sylvanas is still troublesome if it steals the Imp Gang boss, because
Right.
then you lose the damage there.
And it's, yeah, I mean, 2 out of 5 to still Imp Gang boss. It's not terrible odds. I mean, this can happen.
It's still not a bad situation for Dethellor. Nope. Yeah, just doing the tentacle. So now with the silence, he has 6-11 damage. That's a lot of damage there. Can he actually... No, he can't play everything this turn.
Yeah, he can't tap for more damage either.
And not even tapping, like just Crazed Alchemist can swap the stats of the 2/4. And then you have a 4, like it's 2 damage essentially, right?
Sure. Yeah, is being essentially rewarded for holding on to the silence here, since the 5/10 did come down. He does get to just ignore it completely instead of having to send the 5 damage into it. Orange gives out the little smile as to his mulch luck there, giving his opponent the answer to the big taunt. But Dethellor's line has definitely worked out for him, but it was a game that he was extremely favored in regardless with the situation of the game. So the question that I think is important is, did I turn a game that was like 99% favored to win? Did I give him that out of top deck swipe when I didn't need to?
Exactly. And that's that. Orange with the Druid of the Claw cannot do much. He's still able to like survive 1 turn if he Can he actually survive?
He can make a 7 health taunt and take maximum 2 power off the board while gaining 1 life. So he would be at 12, and there would be 5. In theory, he is alive.
In theory,
yes.
he's alive, but there is a lot of cards that can actually buff the minions on the Zoo side. So Yoxaron, if there is nothing being drawn, Yoxaron is still a possibility.
Yeah.
But Yoxaron with this many spells cast and you being at such a low health total.
I mean, this
Being
is
at
the
1.
same equation. Yeah, when I say he can take max 2 power off the board, that was just for calculation purposes. This is the same equation. Taking 5 power off the board and taking 5 damage is the same thing.
And that will be it. So Dethellor is defeating the Yoxaron Druid, which means Orange will have to go with the Shaman versus the Zoo. And I don't know what that Shaman is, but if it's not a concede Shaman, that might be troublesome for Orange.
It definitely will. I don't think the aggro Shaman versus Zoo matchup is probably one of the most commonly played in the game. It's one of the most discussed in the game. I don't think it's as favored for Zoo as a lot of people would have you believe. I think it's definitely winnable for Shaman. They have the early game that can contest it quite well if they put the decent draws together. You know, going first and playing turn 1 Tunnel Trog, you're in a really good spot most of the time. Unless they answer with specifically Flame Imp.
You need the follow-up, I think.
Never mind, this is mid-range.
This is mid-range.
I actually think Zoo is more favored against mid-range Shaman than it is against Face Shaman.
Why? Why is that?
Because mid-range Shaman is just too slow. Like, Zoo can just beat Lightning Storms. Like, people focus too much on Lightning Storm being like what this matchup lives or dies by, and it just really isn't. Like, even without the death rattles, Zoo can just put themselves far enough ahead on the board and then say, all right, Storm.
You still have Divine Shields, and it's hard to build. Like it's easy to defeat the first Storm, but if there is a second Storm, it might be troublesome. Like double Storm, like double consecutive Storm is troublesome for Zoo.
Sure. I mean, yeah, like to the extent where after you've seen one, you go in a lot more aggressively against the second one. So then if the second one happens, it can be more backbreaking.
Yeah.
If you wanted to play the long game against double Storm and just never give your opponent like a backbreaking Storm, you can do that. Like it works. You can still win the matchup that way. So I think Zoo's pretty comfortably favored in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure. Definitely would like to play Zoo in this spot. Because like Zoo is so good with keeping the board. And then Shaman really relies on having the board.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an anti-matchup.
Yeah, I agree. The double thing from below draw alongside a decent start, at least starting with Tuskar Totemic, is reasonable though. But Dethellor just coins out the Forbidden Ritual straight away here, loads up on power on board as early as turn 2. So you know he's saying Storm already. Like he's saying, you know, this is what I'm saying is that he's made this board that demands a Lightning Storm. If it gets Lightning Stormed, who cares? He has the refill there already.
True. And another very good totem from Orange, but I like the hero power last turn to be able to reduce the health of the thing from below, because one thing is really easy to deal with if you're a Zoo, like mostly with just 1 power overwhelming.
Yep.
But if you just slam 2 of them on 1 turn, you have this slight chance of taking away the board.
So yeah, trade the... Ooh, not sure about this. Interesting. So, I mean, just a slight positional thing that I disagree with, which is, you know, one of the most interesting talking points with Zoo, really, is that...
But with the Voidwalker, it makes no sense.
I would have engineered this turn so that the Voidwalkers were directly next to the Direwolf, because you potentially want to ignore the next minion that gets played, which means that they will then have to attack into the buffed taunts that are next to the Direwolf, or at least have the dog on one side with the 2 tentacles to the other side. So you have the taunt being buffed by the dog, and you still have the option to daisy chain the 1/1s on the other side of the dog.
But this is symmetrical.
I mean, that's important too, Nimsh. And what else is important is drawing Lightning Storm, which he did pick up. Does only get the 2 on the Voidwalker here, and as I said, like Dethellor is just fine here. He can just happily refill this board. Although the second Doomguard draw is not what he's going to be wanting to see.
Yeah, it's not something you really want, and now you have to think, do you want to live tap, or do you just want to play Knife Juggler and Abusive? Because you know, like next turn, you're going to play the Doomguard, possibly. He's deciding to tap and maybe not play the Doomguard next turn, but still, he is on board.
He is on board, yeah. It's interesting to see. Whenever someone taps with double Doomguard in hand, it suggests that they're going to try to go the route of playing both Doomguards. Personally, I'm a big fan of just saying, okay, I drew double Doomguard this game, that's unlucky, I'll play my 1 and just hope that's good enough, and not fill up the rest of my hand with stuff that I'm going to discard.
Well, with this, like, he will be able to play the Doomguard, and he still has a chance to keep one of them.
He does.
Like a good chance. but he decides not to do it. Like, he still values the board highly.
Which is interesting. That seemed like a pretty solid Doomguard turn to me.
It wasn't bad, but then you expect Hex, possibly. So maybe you still want to have, like, more minions on board. Like, you are trying to have more cards to be able to... That's the problem with Lightning Storms. Like, you want to have more small minions on board to have a second Storm come and then, like, have, again, more minions. So I actually like tapping from Dethellor's perspective. Just filling his hand with minions. And then you just drop the Doomguard as, like, the 5th minion on board, or 4th minion.
But we're getting to the point where Orange would have enough mana where, you know, if you're scared of Hex, then you're giving him credit for having Hex in his hand. If you're scared of Lightning Storm, you're giving him credit to have Lightning Storm in his hand. Well, and if you Doomguard on a wide board, he has enough mana to Hex Lightning Storm anyway.
Yeah, true, but the problem is that, like, you also lose 2 cards. So basically, if he has the Hex for Doomguard, you're without cards. And, like, you just lost the board, and then if he has the Hex and something else to play, then basically, like, you just life tap and try to play catch-up as Zoo, and this is not what you want.
He didn't gain that many cards that turn, though. He tapped and played 2 cards instead of playing 1 card and discarding 2.
Yeah, true.
So it's not like a huge gain in cards. But yeah, I mean, sure, I buy it. Like, staying high on resources to beat removal options is definitely a thing with Warlock, with Zoo, but it's something that I reserve more for, like, more controlling matchups than this. Like things like Priest, for example. I just always want to have resources in hand because you can impose yourself on Priest with just pretty small boards and just make sure that you have stuff to refill.
I think the big question about this matchup is, like, how do you win the matchup in the long term? And you win this matchup when you have a board, and if you want to have the board, you have to have cards to be able to play them. Especially because you can life tap almost every turn. Shaman will not kill you with damage if he doesn't have a board.
We've discussed at length the world where he does have Hex, but I think you also have to consider the world where he didn't, right? If you just slam that Doomguard on turn 5, don't you just win the game if he doesn't have Hex? Is that not worth the risk, just in risk-reward terms?
You probably do, because then you just follow up with life tap after the Doomguard, and you still keep refilling your hand, so definitely worth considering.
Anyway, he's drawn a Dark Iron Dwarf this turn, which is nice. It's something chunky that he can continue to play here, but it doesn't really enable too many great trades on the board.
Well, it actually is great, because then you can Abusive and Dark Iron Dwarf into the 1/1 and kill the 5/5 without any problems.
But Dethellor's line here has been life tapping, right? So if he now dwindles his hand back down to just having those 2 Doomguards in it, then aren't we just back in the same situation we were in 3 turns ago, but we haven't played a Doomguard?
Well, we do have a board now. So that was his game plan, to have a lot of small minions.
What else gives you a board? A 5/7.
But this is just 1 minion, right?
Okay. All right.
So, like, from our perspective, Dethellor is definitely thinking there's a Hex in the hand.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the thing that we can read here, is that, you know, Dethellor is scared of Hex. 100%.
He's really scared. He's sitting there in the dark, you know, the frogs. Okay, so now still Orange in a bad position. 1 thing done. He has a 2nd thing from below, but this is not the best position there. The board is... He doesn't have the 2nd Storm yet, so he still wants to draw it. He doesn't have that Hex, and that Hex will be really good if the Doomguard shows up. And Doomguard might actually not show up next turn as well, because it will be 7 mana and you want to play constantly.
It's very true. But I think, like, Dethellor's line might pay out for him here, because having now seeing the whole hand getting dumped, now he can feel confident about the Doomguards, right? He's like, well, okay, how likely is that last card to be Hex at this point? I mean, so it might pay out for him. He might get the confidence now to just play Doomguards at some point. But yeah, having the Councilman in hand and having now drawn Defender of Argus to go with it perfectly for 7 mana, that looks pretty powerful. But it's just a matter of, does that let you deal nicely with the 7/5? It's probably the best you're going to do this turn, right? Wow, he taps again.
He just taps. So he is going for the Doomguard, apparently. And with the Doomguard, he will be able to deal with the Flame Tongue Totem. He actually kept the 2nd Doomguard. Wow. Nice. This is awesome.
It really is,
He will be able to play Councilman and Doomguard next turn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking to my guns. I would have played Doomguard earlier, but I cannot deny this has paid out for Dethellor here the way he's taken it, because now look at his next turn. It's just Councilman Doomguard number 2.
And he was able to clear most of the dangerous part of the board. He killed all the totems, which means that Thunder Bluff Valiant is not that great. It's still a good card, but it would be so much better if the Flame Tongue or Mana Tide was there.
Yeah, the Flame Tongue is still a good pickup, though. It lets him address the Doomguard if he wants. Now imagine you just develop a tempo 3-6 alongside that.
Well, you might also go for the Valiant, I believe, and then kill the 3-2 and the 1-1, like kill the Dwarf. But
I mean, I guess both plays Exposure, Thunderbluff, Valiant to the same things. Zoo doesn't really buff by 1 too often. Although I'm saying that Direwolf and Argus will both do it.
well, the thing is,
If
like
you leave the Doomguard up.
the totem will stay. Like you expect Doomguard to attack into Valiant then, and then you have the Trogon line. So like both lines are okay-ish. Which one is better though?
I think I like the Flame Tongue a little bit better. It just asks a slightly better question in terms of having to deal with your Thunderbluff Valiant. And it also just spreads the board wider. So yeah, he takes the halfway play of taking out the 4/4 with the Flame Tongue, which this is what I was just about getting to, where you're now asking 2 questions of Zoo in the same turn, which is hard for them to do.
Yeah.
They don't want to leave the Flame Tongue totem up, but they also don't want to leave the Thunderbluff Valiant up. And this is generally a
And
way
Shrog.
that you can assess the matchup against them. Is it doesn't really matter how much power you have on the board or how much power they have on the board. It's how many attacks can they make? How many threats do you have?
Definitely.
He only has 1 attack to make here in theory without the second Doomguard coming out. So that means that he has to have priorities as to what to clear out.
But still, this is a really awesome situation for Dethellor with a good board and a life tap, because he will be able to draw 2 cards every turn, where Orange is, well, forced to have only 1 card. This turn, he is able to deal with... No, he is actually not able to deal with the 2/5.
He cannot kill anything this turn unless he was to play Flame Juggler and have it hit the 3/5. The 2/5, sorry.
And that's not a Stonkler totem. Well, if he hits, that's big.
Yeah, if he hits the 2/5 here, that's a huge deal. That's not the play. For once, that was not the place.
So what do you do now? Do you still attack it into 2/5 to be able to reduce its health? Like, your opponent doesn't have cards in hand. Forbidden Ritual 1 was played. There is this possibility the second will be there as well, but just preemptively deal damage to the Councilman.
I think you definitely put the 3 damage on something. The Councilman is the target that makes the most sense to me. Is there any merit to putting 3 damage onto a Doomguard instead? I don't really think so. I think the 1/1 is fine going face, but this 3 damage should take the value trade while it can, because it's not a value trade next turn once it starts getting buffed up in power.
And there is a power overwhelming that's not that great, but it might be okay actually to kill the second Thunderbluff Valiant with the Councilman, and then you kill 1 Valiant with the 5/7, you kill the 2/3 with the 5/6, and you play Flame Imp and you almost clear the board and you deal with the threats. So actually this PO is better than I thought.
Yeah, the PO's okay. It doesn't feel good, right? You never want to power overwhelming a Councilman. You want to power overwhelming, a possessed villager, sometimes a squire, but jamming it on your 3-drop doesn't feel like the best thing in the world. But in terms of what it does to the board state, it's actually a pretty effective card.
And that's basically it. Orange left with the 4/2 totem, which is still okay with the 1/1, but slowly losing the board. If he picks something like Storm, is it? Because the only card draw in this deck is Mana Tide Totem.
Yeah, Mana Tide is usually the only draw. People don't really run Azure Drakes too much anymore, but he's just considering his trade options here. He's thinking about the threat of a Lightning Storm top deck versus just engineering the board into a better place. He could have traded the 5/7 into the 3/6. That just directly leaves like the glorious 4 power trade into the other Doomguard. So by making the trades in this way, he's a tiny bit more exposed to Lightning Storm, but he doesn't offer up any good trades on the board.
Yeah, also like clearing the totem reduces the possibility of the lightning, of the spell damage totem showing up.
Sure. So Hex is drawn, but Hex is drawn after basically every big minion in Zoo has been played, and they've all already got value. So a little bit late to the party for the Hex, but still it'll allow him to address some of this board state. He's going to have trouble going 1-for-1 with Dethellor from this point, because Dethellor's just going to be able to life tap. So 1-for-1 cards like Hex are not what he needs here. He needs better than that.
There's still a chance for a Sea Giant from that list. Like some of the lists with double Doomguard, they still play 1 Sea Giant.
Sure.
But still.
Yeah,
You probably just do Hex here.
I mean,
to deal with the
your Warlock opponent is also at 13. I don't know what form of burst damage, if any, Orange is playing in his deck, whether there's a Doom Hammer, how many Fire Elementals there are that can go face this sort of thing, but he was probably also considering his options of putting some damage on the face just to try and take away the life tap a little bit so you don't get to tap too much this game. But in the end, he just decided to take the trade.
You know, like a consecutive Doom Hammer into Storm draw can still win this game for Orange, but that's basically it, I think.
Yeah, and it's questionable whether Doomhammer's even in the deck. Doomhammer was originally in standard format a staple even in the mid-rangey lists, but people have started to remove it moving forward because there's just so much Harrison, and getting Harrison as a mid-range deck is just so much more brutal than getting Harrison as a aggro deck a lot of the time.
Really tough. Especially because as an aggro deck, you still have a second Doomhammer and just go face. Like, your opponent has limited amounts of mana every turn.
Right. As an aggro deck, you can put your opponent in positions like, sure, if you want to spend 5 mana here on destroying my weapon, then I still have like 6 power on the board that's going to hit you in the face next time.
Exactly. This is a nice board for the Zoo. Dethellor is still probably afraid of the Lightning Storm, but at this point, like, knowing your opponent is drawing from the top, you just have to go all in and just win this game as fast as possible, because you're at 8. You're at 6 now.
Yeah. I mean, this is brave. He understands that he thinks he still needs cards to win this game, which is probably accurate. He puts his opponent to 16 this turn. So 3, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, I mean, this extra card that he just life tapped into means that he's threatening lethal now on the following turn.
So only a Stoneclaw Totem.
Was Stoneclaw Totem even enough all of the time? It's not, right? Because of what the Knife Juggler can do. So
this means that Dethellor is going to win this game and win the match as well, winning versus Orange. And when we tuned in, it looked so good for Orange with his Cthulhu. Not Cthulhu, like Yogg-Saron Druid.
Right, he was in an awkward spot though. I think, like, even though he was ahead in the game after he won that Yogg Druid game, he then had to send Yogg Druid into Zoo, which is unfavored, and then that means he would end up with Shaman against Zoo. So, you know, even though he was ahead, the matchups weren't really working out in his favor. That is going to be the end of the game. Dethellor is going to win the series, so I assume we'll get to have a word with him at some point, and we can talk to him, Nimch, in detail about his plans with Doom Guards.
Great.
Yes.
And Frontline is with us. And Frontline, what do you think about it? There is Zoo and Shaman, and Orange brought this Yogg-Saron Druid, but it is kind of weak versus Zoo. And then Shaman is also, like, the Shaman that Orange brought is weak versus Zoo, but he banned Shaman himself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know a lot of people are starting to not ban Shaman really at all, and they ban Warrior and Warlock instead, just because they feel like their matchups are more polarizing, and there's more rise of Shaman counters, as you see that people even are gravitating away from aggro Shaman. They want to play mid-range Shaman because they feel like its matchups across the board, considering the ban, are actually better. So I can't necessarily say I agree fundamentally with how the series began with how banning Shaman, but in the end, you're crafting your own lineup so you know it better, and you're coming in with a game plan. And oftentimes, the real mistake is questioning that game plan going into the series. You start saying, like, you know what, maybe I don't want to ban Shaman even though I built my lineup to ban Shaman. That's where you really mess up. So if Orange came in with that series game planning, like, you know, I want to ban Shaman, then I don't think that's necessarily incorrect. All right, so it looks like Dethellor is coming in here. You may have seen him walk briskly past the camera, and now he is here. What's up, man?
A very, very tense series, so need to recover a bit.
Sure. So just walk us through some of the mindset that you had. I mean, were you aware of, like, the kind of decks Orange would bring and what he would ban?
Okay, yeah, I came into this tournament pretty much expecting what to ban, I guess. And yeah, so Orange banned my Shaman, and I didn't really expect people to ban Shaman in this tournament. But when you ban Shaman, you just try to counter, to like bring Rhinolock to, because like Rhinolock's worst matchup is like Shaman, and you try to beat Warriors. And Warrior is very popular right now, so if you bring Rhinolock, you just try to counter Warrior. I mean, just beat Warrior with it. So I expected that he was playing Rhinolock. And I thought he would save it for last, but he started with it. I mean, I guess you didn't see the first 2 games.
No, we didn't.
I started with my Patron and managed to win like the unfavored matchup, but then we had a crazy Yogg game, and he beat my Patrons like with 19 spells, and that tied the series, and then we just played the last 3 games. I mean, my Zoo was my best deck against his lineup, and fortunately it helped me to win it. I mean,
You mentioned that you're bringing Patron Warrior. That's a deck we haven't seen in quite some time now. Why'd you bring Patron of all Warrior variants?
it's the best deck against Zoo Warlock, I guess. Zoo is very popular, so if you you have to counter it some way, and if you don't ban it, you have to counter it some way.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right, I want to talk to you quickly about the last game, the Zoo versus Shaman. So you drew the double Doomguard hand, and then obviously you have like a decision at that point. It's like, how do I play this hand? Do I just ditch the second Doomguard, or do I life tap? Like, can you just talk to us a little bit, because you life tapped really like excessively after you drew that second Doomguard. So just talk to like about what you were thinking.
Okay, so first of all, in the beginning, I said like, okay, it's a mid-range Shaman. Based like on the way he played, the way he played the best of 5 and the way he played his opening hand, I was certain he was playing mid-range Shaman. So at the beginning, I was like, okay, please don't get the Lightning Storm. He got the Lightning Storm. Probably it was like his only Lightning Storm, right? He top decked that.
He drew it that turn.
Yes. So that put me to a very, very bad spot. And then I see the second Doomguard, and I'm like, I'm doomed. So my only way is like trying to outvalue him. There is no way I can rush him. So I just patiently like try to dig into my deck, make some value trades, and I had to just draw enough cards so my first Doomguard doesn't discard my second Doomguard, and that's exactly what happened. Like that was my plan. Like that was my only way of winning the game, and I went for that, and yeah, fortunately it worked out.
Endgame. And I want to ask you about the Greek community, because I've seen on Twitter you came with a lot of guys. Like, how many Greek players are playing the tournament?
I came with 3 other Greek guys, and we have another 4 here. So we have 8 Greek guys in total, which is kind of a lot, right?
Yeah, that is. Who'd you come with?
I came with Fino, Kirst, and Eric Beck, and they're also like 4 Greek guys from another team. And we have also like Cypher from my team is playing here.
Nice.
From Karma.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, congratulations, man, on your first round victory. But, as you know, there's a lot more to be had. And we're just done with our first round here of Swiss. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to check in to see how everything's going from the server stability, make sure that we can get round 2 under the way. But if we do take a long break, please understand that there's server stabilities right now for Europe, and we're just trying to accommodate all the players according to get the first round Swiss get done. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, more action here from Valencia for the DreamHack Grand Prix.